Greetings. Today we're going to understand how the citizenship concept evolved in the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire, from the foundation of Rome to the Republic to the Roman Empire. Lots of questions about citizenship today in the world. So let's take a look at how it evolved in Roman history. First, you had the idea of, if you're born, if your father is Roman, you are Roman, that hereditary idea of citizenship. The next evolution comes with military service. If you serve in the Roman army in the Republic time for 20 to 25 years, you could become a citizen, and that would include your whole family, and that was open to anybody that served in the legions. There are individual situations that citizenship was granted based on military valor, loyalty during civil wars. We're going to see this during the social wars in Italy, with the cities that stayed aligned with Rome. They were granted citizenship rights, sometimes without the right to vote, but citizens nevertheless. And finally, the Romans would grant citizenship to the powerful people in Latin towns. It's an interesting strategy that they're going to repeat in Gaul eventually. Finally, freed slaves could become, through a process, eventually become citizens. So there were paths to citizenship all the way back to the Roman Republic. In the monarchic rule of Rome, it was basically hereditary. So then, how did these citizens would organize themselves? People that lived in Rome, you would have the patricians, of course, which are the original ruling class. These are families that dated back to the foundation of Rome, according to their own lore. And then you have the plebeians, which are the common citizens. Over time, they gain more and more rights. One of the first strikes in history, in recorded history, occurs when the plebeians are actually leave the city to protest the lack of rights. And then one of the key moments is when they get the rights to have tribunes, which are the tribunes of the people who represent the plebeians. Eventually, those tribunes gain more and more power. That leads to civil wars over time. The equites are the wealthy business class in Rome. It's a mix of patricians and plebeians that acquired wealth over time. The original name equites come from the fact they could come with a horse. They could to the legions. The peregrini is an interesting group of people. These are free foreigners that move into Rome. Of course, it creates the term pilgrim that we use in English today. You have the liberti, which are freedmen with limited rights in Rome. So those are the different social classes and status you could find in Rome, in ancient Rome over time. Of course, the rights and privileges of citizenship included suffragion, which is the right to vote, include connubium, which is the right to get married to a Roman person, men or women. You have the optimal iure, which is the full citizenship with vote. Optimal is, optimization of the top. And then you have the sine suffragio, which is an interesting concept. You have citizenship without the right to vote. So as you can see here, in some moments in Roman history, you had levels of citizenship, which I guess you would think of it as the concept of second-class citizens that you find all the way to 1984, George Orwell. So the legal protections of a citizen in Rome were very important. And the number one is that you have the right to appeal to the emperor during this is during the empire. And the most famous example of this is when St. Paul, the Christian, is about to be whipped. And he says, I'm a citizen, I want to appeal to the emperor. So that offers you protection from the local courts, because you could appeal all the way to the top if you are a Roman citizen. So that's an important, interesting right. How did it evolve over time? First of all, the conflict of the orders. As I said, as the plebeians asked for more and more rights, it created wars and civil wars that started with what's called the conflict of the orders, which sometimes you call the first strike in history. Of course, around the year 100 BC, before Christ, you have the attempt to land redistribution. It's a very interesting moment in Roman history between the 2nd and the 1st century before Christ. The Romans becoming more and more successful, gaining more and more power and dominion over the Mediterranean. So what happens is you have an influx of enslaved people into the peninsula, into Italy. And that leads to Italians and Romans to have to compete with the enslaved. That process eventually leads to the empire, to the end of the republic. Is the concentration of power, which actually leads to the civil wars of Sulla, Pompey, Caesar, Octavian, and then Octavian becomes the first emperor around the year 30 before Christ. Way before that, you had the social wars. As I said, that was the beginning of all this. They were triggered by the assassination of Drusus, which happens to be the grandfather of Livia, Octavian's wife. So it's all connected. Remember, Rome was still dominated by very few families. Drusus was fighting for the rights of the Latin tribes and got assassinated in Rome. You have different laws that pass over time that start to extend citizenship from Rome. So the idea here is that citizenship starts hereditary of people that are born and raised in Rome, in the city of Rome, to the Latin cities around Rome, to the Italian peninsula, to Italy all along, to, and then you're going to see here, the imperial expansion of citizenship, which starts in a way with Julius Caesar, who grants citizenship to Gallic tribes that supported him in his conquer of Gaul. And so there is this granting citizenship to tribesmen in Spain and in Gaul, which is France. Eventually, the major date to remember here is the year 212, which is a little over 2,000 years ago, when Caracalla actually he expands citizenship to all freed inhabitant of the empire. So a citizenship for all free inhabitants is an incredible moment in history when Roman citizenship expands all the way to all free inhabitants of the Roman Empire. Interesting moment. It took a lot of blood, a lot of wars, and several hundred years to get there. So we ought to learn from history here. Of course, the other key element of Rome is the patronage system, where you have patron and client bonds with reciprocal duties to each other. There are naming conventions in which new citizens took the patron's name. So this idea of taking names is a very Roman idea. And then you have political influence, in which you have political voting blocks that were important during this period. But the important lesson here is that citizenship evolves over time. The concept of who is Roman and who is not Roman evolves over time. And it took wars, blood, pain and suffering, deaths, and strife to get to full citizenship to all inhabitants of the Roman Empire in the year 212 under the Emperor Caracalla, which you can still visit his fountains, baths in Rome today, if you were so lucky. I hope you have a great day and be good to each other.